Many people think Tawakkul means doing nothing and sitting idle. They think relying on Allah means just crossing your arms, closing your eyes, and saying with the mouth that Allah is there. But no, true Tawakkul is not laziness. Tawakkul means I will step out of my house. I will try with all my might. I will bear the bone-crushing hardship. I will fiercely avoid Haram, no matter how tempting it looks. I will not hide my tears when my heart breaks. And after doing everything a human being can possibly do, I will leave the final result entirely in the hands of Allah. Many, many years ago today, the majestic Tigris River flowed beside a quiet, dusty village near the great city of Baghdad. The water of that river was like human life itself, sometimes soft and forgiving, sometimes violently turbulent. Sometimes it turned into liquid gold under the blazing midday sun, and sometimes it turned deep, melancholic blue in the shadow of the evening. The village was not very big, but the people who lived there were simple, hard-working, and deeply God-fearing. In that village lived Tariq ibn Ibrahim. He was a young man, around 30 years old, with a neatly trimmed black beard and eyes that held the depth of the river he worked on. By profession, he was a boatman. Tariq had no big wealth of his own, no vast lands, no profitable business, no inherited treasures. His only reliance in this massive world was a small, weathered wooden boat, the endless hard work of his two calloused hands, and a pure, simple faith in Allah. Every single day, long before the morning azan echoed through the village, Tariq would wake up. When the heavy darkness of the night slowly faded into a soft, hazy blue and the first light hesitated in the sky, he would silently get up. He would perform his ablution with cold water, feeling the sleep wash away, and walk to the mud brick mosque. After finishing the Fajr prayer, while the world was still asleep, he would raise his rough hands and make a simple, desperate plea. "O Allah, make this day of mine a day of halal provision."
Then he would head to the riverbank. From morning till dusk, he would ferry people across the Tigris. Sometimes his boat was filled with noisy villagers, sometimes with heavy wooden logs, sometimes with towering sacks of grain that bruised his shoulders. He spent his days carrying the weight of the world. His income was incredibly little. Yet, walking home with aching muscles, Tariq would look at the few copper coins in his palm, smile a tired but genuine smile, and whisper, "Alhamdulillah. Even if it is little, it is halal." His family was small but overflowing with love. His old father, Ibrahim, had a frail, shivering body, but seeing his son return home safely brought a profound peace to his cloudy eyes. His mother, Amanah, was a quiet-natured woman whose lips were always moving in silent prayers. His wife, Fatima, was the true light of the mud brick house. Even in the grip of suffocating poverty, an unnecessary complaint was never heard from her mouth. And then there was his little daughter, Aisha, just 5 years old. When Tariq returned home, exhausted to his bones, Aisha would run to him with her tiny arms wide open. The smile of that little girl was like the cool breeze of paradise for Tariq.
Tariq's life was a constant battle. Many days passed when, returning home in the dark, he had to painstakingly calculate whether today's meager income would buy his father's medicine or his daughter's food. Yet, he never became bitter, because his father Ibrahim had taught him from childhood, "Son, provision is not just money. A peaceful sleep is also provision. A healthy body is also provision. An unbreakable faith is also provision.
and a contented heart, that is the greatest provision of all. One afternoon in late spring, the sky felt unusually heavy. Clouds were gathering far away, turning the horizon the color of bruised iron. There was a strange, eerie restlessness in the wind. The leaves of the palm trees were shivering, as if nature was preparing for a terrifying event. That day, just before evening, a wealthy merchant came running to the riverbank. He looked at Tariq with frantic, desperate eyes and said, "Brother, I have urgent goods. They absolutely must reach the other side of the river tonight. I will pay you well. Please help me."
Tariq looked up at the menacing sky. Seeing the swirling black clouds, he hesitated. The river was already looking angry, but the pressing need on the man's face was so real that Tariq couldn't say no. Not out of greed for the extra coins, but out of empathy for a man in distress, he agreed. He untied the ropes and set off the boat. At first, everything was manageable. The wind was blowing hard, but Tariq's experienced hands controlled the oars. Then, after going some distance, the sky suddenly turned pitch dark. Day turned into night in a matter of seconds. A massive gust of wind blew in a flash. Then came the blinding lightning, tearing the sky apart, followed by sharp, painful hail. Then, such a storm began, as if all the doors of the heavens had been ripped open at once. The wooden boat started rocking violently. The merchant fell to his knees, screaming in pure terror. Tariq gritted his teeth, his muscles screaming in agony as he tried to fight the river. Giant waves were crashing from the right, then slamming from the left. Due to the blinding rain and splashing river water, visibility dropped to 0. Suddenly, out of the darkness, a massive, towering wave rose like a mountain and crashed directly into the boat. In the blink of an eye, the boat flipped over. In one violent jerk, the freezing, dark water submerged Tariq's chest, his head, his eyes. Everything became a chaotic swirl of bubbles and darkness. He could hear the muffled, desperate screams of the merchant drowning nearby. Even in that terrifying situation, fighting for his own breath, Tariq swam towards the merchant, using his last ounce of strength to push the man towards a relatively calm side of the water, near a floating log. But by doing so, Tariq's own strength completely ran out. The merciless current grabbed his legs, dragging him deep under. The light of the lightning above faded into a distant glow. The dark water filled his ears. The last breath escaped from his chest. He realized, this is it. This is really the end. In that final, fading moment of consciousness, his pale lips trembled underwater. Ya Allah, whatever you wish. Then, everything went black. How much time passed, he didn't know. Maybe the stormy night had passed and morning had broken. Slowly, his blurry vision returned. He felt a gentle, cooling sensation on his forehead. Someone was placing a wet cloth on him. Opening his heavy eyes, he saw the ceiling of an unfamiliar mud house. It was incredibly clean, small, and perfectly silent. A warm clay lamp was burning in one corner. Sitting beside him was an old woman. Her hair was stark white, but her eyes held the softness of a mother. Her lips were moving in a continuous whisper of tasbih. Seeing Tariq blink, she smiled. "You are awake, my son," she said softly. "By the endless mercy of Allah, you have survived." Later, he learned that the fierce current had washed him ashore miles away, far down the river.
The old woman's son, a young fisherman, had seen Tariq's lifeless body floating near the reeds and dragged him home. They were very ordinary, poor people. But what they offered was a kind of selfless hospitality that is rarely found even in the grand palaces of kings. On the third day, feeling somewhat recovered, Tariq's mind became restless. He had to leave. What was happening at his home? Did his little Aisha think her Baba was dead?
At the doorway, during farewell, the old woman held his rough hand firmly. She looked deep into his eyes and said, "Son, remember this. The Allah who pulled you up from the suffocating depth of the dark water can easily open a path for you on dry land. Even if every door of people closes in your face, the door of Allah never, ever closes." Walking for 2 days, Tariq finally reached his village. As he approached his house, evening had descended. As soon as he pushed the wooden door and entered, Fatima looked at him and froze. She collapsed to her knees and started crying in a way that felt like a mountain of grief had finally exploded into relief. Mother Amanah rushed over, her hands shaking, and little Aisha threw her tiny arms around Tariq's neck. There was endless crying in that house that night, but it was the beautiful crying of gratitude. But the very next morning, Tariq went to the riverbank and stood there, frozen. His boat was no longer there. Shattered wooden planks were stuck in the mud. The storm had destroyed his only source of income. His knees gave out. No boat meant no medicine for his dying father, no food for his wife, and no future for his daughter. That night, Tariq didn't sleep. He lay in prostration on his mat for a long time. "Ya Allah," he wept. "You know everything. I don't know what to do." A few days passed. Tariq ran from corner to corner looking for odd jobs, but the wages were terribly low. In the meantime, Father Ibrahim's illness severely worsened. The doctor mentioned an astronomical price for medicine, one Tariq could never afford. News spreads fast in a village. A wealthy, arrogant man named Abu Bakr came to Tariq's house with a cunning smile. "Tariq," he said, "I can give you the money right now, but whatever is left of your boat's wood and this house, both must be mortgaged to me. If you fail to return my money with interest, everything becomes mine." Tariq understood perfectly. This was a merciless trap. That night, Tariq sat on his prayer mat and wept. He performed istikhara, asking Allah for guidance. Before the dawn broke, a strange, powerful calmness descended into his chest. The next morning, Tariq looked Abu Bakr dead in the eye and said, "Brother, I do not agree to your condition. If Allah wills, He will open another path for me. But I absolutely refuse to enter a door from where Allah's blessing departs." Days passed, and the test got harder. The flour ran out. The jars were empty. One afternoon, Tariq saw Aisha sitting quietly in a corner. She refused to talk about her hunger because she didn't want her father to feel hurt. That sight pierced Tariq's chest like a jagged knife. He ran out to the bank of the Tigris and sat on the dirt, completely broken. He stood up, performed ablution, and prayed 2 rakats under the vast sky. As he went into prostration, he broke down. With trembling lips, he recited, "Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khayrin faqir." "O my Lord, whatever good you bestow upon me, I am in desperate need of it." Exactly at that moment,
he heard the soft crunch of footsteps on the sand. Standing a few feet away was a middle-aged man in pristine white clothes. "Are you Tariq, the boatman?" the man asked. He introduced himself as Salman, a merchant who took massive caravans down the river. "I need a man who is not just skilled, but completely trustworthy," Salman said. "When I ask the villagers who the most honest man in this area is, they all mentioned your name." Tariq hesitated, saying his boat was broken. Salman chuckled. "Tariq, I have plenty of boats. I don't need a boat. I need a man. A man who knows the river, and a man whose hands will not betray a trust." Salman reached into his robe and pulled out a heavy leather pouch of silver and gold coins as an advance. Tariq stood frozen. These were the answers to his prostration. He ran to the market, bought his father's medicine, bought fresh food, and a large jar of honey for Aisha. When he returned, Fatima wept and said, "Did you see, Tariq? Allah delayed, but He never, ever forsook us." The next morning, Tariq took the helm of Salman's grand caravan. One night during the journey, Salman sat beside Tariq on the deck and asked where his inner peace came from, despite all his hardships. Tariq replied, "Sir, when a person thinks he has to manage everything by himself, his heart breaks. But when a person truly understands, I will just try my best and Allah will manage the rest, then his heart becomes weightless." The journey was going perfectly until Tariq's instincts woke him up one night. He heard two armed guards plotting to kill Salman and steal the gold. Tariq faced a terrifying choice, but for a true believer, protecting a trust is a sacred duty. He woke Salman up, and the mutiny was stopped. The next morning, Salman told the crew, "The wealth of this caravan was not saved. My life was not saved. What was saved was my trust. And the man who stood like a shield to protect that trust is Tariq." The journey ended with massive success. Salman offered Tariq the permanent chief responsibility of all his commercial river routes. Tariq returned home no longer carrying copper coins, but enough wealth to change their destiny. Yet not a single drop of arrogance entered his heart. He secretly sent food to the poorest families and bought medicine for retired boatmen. Eventually, Abu Bakr, the arrogant man who tried to trap him, fell into ruin. He came to Tariq's door, begging for help. Tariq didn't mock him. He brought him inside, served him food, and gave him the money he needed, with no interest and no conditions. Abu Bakr broke down sobbing, learning that true faith makes a person's character beautiful. Years rolled by. One evening, as the sun cast a golden glow on the water, Aisha asked her father how he never broke down during those crushing years of poverty. Tariq smiled and said, "Who told you I didn't break down, my child? I shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, but I cried less in front of people, and I cried more in front of Allah. Crying in prostration makes the heaviest heart light." The life of Tariq teaches us that Tawakkul is the beautiful marriage of relentless human effort and unbreakable divine faith. It teaches us that the shortcut of Haram is a mirage. Perhaps you are passing through a dark storm in your life right now. Perhaps there is a terrifying strain on your provision. If so, remember Tariq's prostration on the riverbank. Remember that crying to Allah in the dark of night never goes in vain. The answer may be delayed to test your patience, but it is never ignored. If you abandon a haram relationship, a haram job, or a haram shortcut today just to please Allah, know with absolute certainty
that you have not lost anything. A magnificent halal door is waiting to swing wide open at the perfect divine time. May Allah make us among those who truly, deeply, and beautifully rely on Him alone. Ameen.